Okay, happy day, everyone. I have Mustafa Sayed with me today. He's the executive director of the Pakistan China Institute, an institute that was actually set up in 2009, and it's a first of its kind, non governmental, non partisan, non political think tank. And it's there to promote people to people relationship between Pakistan and China in the area of defense, diplomacy, education, energy, economy, and environment. And he is here today with us to join us in a conversation about what's happening in Pakistan. In fact, we just had a conversation just prior to the show that he's just come back from this beautiful hiking trip. But sadly, he was also hit with a flash flood.
No, thank God I wasn't hit by flashlights
You were
too.
not, yeah, but
Otherwise, this podcast would not be happening. But
your,
the area that I was in was subject of very heavy flash floods, unfortunately. And
right.
it's an
But you
area.
were caught. You were caught in.
I, I
Yeah,
would say I was happily stuck there because it's a beautiful place.
I'm
So
sure.
I couldn't leave, and I had a great time while I was there because it's a it's the convergence of three highest peaks and beautiful
Mhm.
ranges. Himalayas, Hindu Kush, and the Karakoram converge in Gilgit-Baltistan. Which is
Okay.
why I'm saying that since you are into trekking, you should definitely make a pit stop there. It's a beautiful area. It borders with Xinjiang, southwestern province of China. And
Mm.
actually, you can drive into Xinjiang in your car.
Oh.
You can drive down. There is a beautiful highway which was made in the 1980s,
Mhm.
Karakoram Highway. It's called
Mhm.
the Pakistan-China Friendship Highway, and it was constructed by the China Road and Bridge Corporation
When
and the
was it?
Frontier
Yeah.
Works Organization of Pakistan. And so you can drive into China and vice versa. And once you're in Xinjiang, then you can go into Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. So it's a great location. It's also strategically important. It's very beautiful. And it's a top destination of mountaineers, actually.
Wow.
So a lot of people who like going to Nepal, they also come to Gilgit-Baltistan for hiking.
Yeah, that shows, strategically, Pakistan is in a very strategic, a very important geopolitical location.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a good time now. Maybe perhaps you could just have give us a brief introduction of yourself, and what does your institute is all about, and what do you hope to achieve? Just because I am actually wanting to have a series of conversations with you because we don't seem to be able to get enough.
Your
I feel
pleasure.
we're not being able to get enough, news on the ground. What are the people? It's most for me. The more important thing is not so much the policy, but the statecraft, the maneuverings behind, policies and how people are reacting to it on the ground. So over to you, Mustafa.
That's a very wide-ranging question, Guyan. And firstly, such a pleasure and honor to be invited on your podcast. And I would like to congratulate you on this new initiative that you've taken to do podcasts. I think this is a great way of teasing out real, true, factual
Mm,
information in today's day and age, and at a time where we see there's a transition happening from traditional media to new media, and we see that traditional media and traditional media outlets
mm-hmm.
slowly but surely fading away. So
Absolutely.
you are on point with this new initiative, and very excited to be on it. I think that firstly, my own uh, s- few lines on me. Who am I and what am I doing? So I, yeah, I'm leading this think tank. It's a very interesting organization because we work very closely with China and engage. with all that China has to offer, right? And as you know, in the global south, the role of China and its footprint has only increased,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's South Asia or Southeast Asia, where you are, and Central Asia. Was established in 2009, as you rightly pointed out, by Senator Mushaid Hussain Sayed. This will be a very important avenue for Pakistan to excel, grow,
Mm-hmm.
and be strategically relevant. And that partnership with China will be at the core and center of Pakistan's journey, and it's being proved right, rightfully. I mean, just now, very recently, we were in the news uh, for a conflict with our eastern neighbor, and the very critical part
Mm.
that the world saw
Mm.
was the partnership in the conflict with China and the technology of the JF-17s,
Yeah.
uh, fighter planes, and other technology that was used that enabled Pakistan to emerge victorious in this conflict of defending its sovereignty. Pakistan China Institute is basically been engaging with China, both public sector and private sector, on
Mm-hmm.
people to people connectivity. So, what does that entail? Is engaging with universities, engaging with professional organizations, engaging with civil society organizations. And then we've been decoding and unpacking the Belt and Road Initiative, right?
Mm.
So that has been in a two-pronged manner. One is working with Chinese think tanks. Second is also working with Chinese investors, Pakistan, the agents of the Belt and Road, as I call them, who are actually implementing the
Mm.
BRI in Pakistan and undertaking BRI projects. And of course, we have also been working closely with the Chinese government, with the state, some organizations of the State Council, and the International Department of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China.
Yeah.
And it has been a phenomenal journey because I have learned so much. Every time I go to China, it
Mm.
is there's so much learning. I every time learn something new, and that is actually it's not the money or it's not anything else, but it's
Mm.
that excitement of learning new things every single day. And that is, I think, what countries like Pakistan and
Mm.
Malaysia too, as a close partner of China, have an opportunity to learn. And at the same time, I would like to say, and I was actually talking to someone recently, including you, actually, that there has to be more connectivity, institutional engagement between Pakistan and ASEAN countries, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's a vacuum. So I mean, this is the time of Asia. As they say, it's the Asian century. So we have to materialize that.
We have to put in our effort too, right? Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the CPEC. It started in 2015. I believe that was part of the One Belt One Road initiative. The CPEC
Correct.
is supposed to link Yogyakarta port to the China western city of and really build the whole uh, new trade route between South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East.
Correct.
So, in terms of, again, going back to your geopolitical location, being so strategic, what does
Mhm.
this new trade route actually means? Because that will also have an impact on ASEAN. Now, if
Mm.
China is successful in terms of bypassing the entire South China Sea, we may be starved to death. Yeah. So tell us what does that mean for Pakistan and what does that mean for global trade?
Look, when you say you will starve to death, but I love
I'm
Malaysia.
exaggerating.
Speaking of starving, I forgot that chicken dish. You have this roasted chicken dish with rice. It's very simple.
Hey, oh, you're talking about Malaysia?
Yeah,
Yeah, chicken rice. Yeah, chicken rice. We have the chicken rice. You love that.
fantastic. I've had it. It's so good.
It's
Anyway,
actually the full name is Hainanese chicken rice. But when
Ah,
to Hainan in China, there's no such dish.
okay.
We invented it ourselves because the
Right.
first time it appeared in the Malaysian Singapore menu, actually it because it originated from the Hainanese coffee shops. So
Oh my God. Wow.
it's called Hainanese chicken rice, not because it came from Hainan, it's because most of the coffee shops were run by Hainanese. There you go.
Oh, very interesting. I did not know this context, but but I love that.
Okay.
Um, so when you talk about what's happening in Pakistan and the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which I'll just delve into, but I also want to say that BRI, which was announced in 2013 by President Xi while he was on a visit to Kazakhstan,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was the university either in Astana and Almaty in his keynote where he announced the BRI to the CPEC, this China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, was the flagship project of the BRI at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But it has evolved. The BRI has evolved as we celebrated its 10-year anniversary in 2023. And now, according to my analysis, the focal area of the BRI is where you are, it's the ASEAN countries. ASEAN is now the biggest trading partner of China, and the outbound investment of China, largest outbound investment to one single region has been ASEAN, FYI.
Yeah, correct.
So ASEAN is part and parcel of the Belt and Road Initiative now, but Pakistan has played a very key role in kicking off the BRI and that unlocking Xinjiang's potential because it's a landlocked region, Xinjiang, surrounded by Central Asian countries. It needed access to the warm waters, access to commerce, and that Gwadar port can serve as by connecting Xinjiang via rail, road, and highways, which it is being done. Highways already been done, and rail there is also that is a feasibility which is still being done, being connected. And of course, Gwadar port has been operationalized, and the China Overseas Port Holding Company has leased the Gwadar port free zone for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So connecting Xinjiang and Gwadar, and then enabling Xinjiang and the southwestern region of China to develop exponentially like mainland. Because as we know, Xinjiang and the Gansu and some of those provinces, Qinghai,
Mm.
been left behind in development. Compared to country place, the prosperous provinces in Pakistan, Xinjiang is very developed. But compared to mainland China, Xinjiang is still, considered a slightly
Yeah.
less developed area. And that is as we have seen, Fui, right? The central government has encouraged industries from the mainland to be relocated to Xinjiang.
Yeah.
So Pakistan has played a very important role as a partner in BRI, and we had $28 billion of investments in just the power sector alone
Mm-hmm.
since CPEC began, and then of course key infrastructure arteries have also been built that have enabled Pakistanis to have much more enhanced mobility, which they did not have
Yep.
earlier. People
Yep.
can drive down from Karachi, which is the main largest port city. I call it the Shanghai of Pakistan. They can drive down from Karachi to Islamabad. And in COVID, people didn't take flights. They actually drove from Karachi, preferred driving from Karachi to Islamabad, which was very, very unique and unheard of earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So this is CPEC, but
Mm-hmm.
there have been challenges, and it is unfortunate that hard power of big powers is being used to
Mm.
contain China all over the world.
Yeah.
And what is happening is, sorry, you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to reiterate to say that, we often like to see shifts in power struggle as if it's a zero sum game. So
Correct.
if China has access to warm water ports through Pakistan, they won't be needing us. If we prosper, they won't be needing Pakistan. So
Correct.
it's always playing one of the other,
Yes.
the big powers. And I think we shouldn't fall into that trap. There
100%.
there is so much untapped resources and wealth in Xinjiang and in parts of Pakistan where you are, and that
Mhm.
there is nothing to stop them to be the next ASEAN. I mean, no doubt ASEAN has benefited very greatly in the last 40 years, being part of ASEAN, being part of that trading route. Of course, Malacca has been a sea route for the last, 600 years. But just because other trade routes are coming up doesn't mean that Malacca becomes less important.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that big power mentality of ensuring that unipolarity stays or ensuring that the status quo remains is something which big powers are grappling with.
Mhm.
And I think that it's very interesting to see how China is seen as a revisionist power by some. But I don't see China as a revisionist power. I don't see China wanting to replace any big power because China does not intend and historically has not wanted to have conflict. Their focus is the well being and high quality delivery of public goods to
Yeah.
their people. That if you it's so important, and I tell our leaders here in Pakistan that if you want to work with China, understand and learn their history. I mean, the last war that they had was with Vietnam, right, in 1979. It's been so long. That was
Mm.
the last one. And after that, they've just been focusing on development and economic progress. That is
Yeah.
all that they've been doing.
We Chinese don't like to send our sons to die. Okay,
Yeah.
Chinese mothers don't like blood, generally speaking. Okay.
Exactly. So I think that China, I mean, even if you look at the dynasties before the People's Republic was formed, there was, the concept of China being the Middle Kingdom and the tributaries, the countries, the states which are surrounding it, and the commerce, and they used to pay the tributaries, with gold, with other goods to
Yeah.
maintain relations, and it- that as the Middle Kingdom, it did not encroach upon other
That it was building walls to keep people out.
building walls for defense, and they were
People
they
are
were
out.
conquering armies, which actually came through. But so it's the concept of preservation of and in some senses actually insular, right?
In
Some
many ways it
senses,
is
in
because
some
they
senses, it's quite insular.
yeah, I can tell you, I think as far as the Chinese history is concerned, it's always about the mandate of heaven. So
Mandate of heaven,
yeah,
yes.
how do you maintain mandate of heaven? Mandate of heaven is actually a bit oxymoronic because you can only maintain um mandate of heaven if the people are behind you. The ordinary people must
And leading through moral legitimacy.
yes, you
Moral legitimacy.
must have that legitimacy.
Yeah.
And if anything, China is obsessed in making sure that people are fed and make sure that people inflation is control is under control. That's why I know they will never allow the yuan to float or be the international currency or reserve currency or whatever it is because they cannot afford to have the volatility that is required as a reserve currency. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's another topic for
That's a very key point. Mandate of heaven, and of course, Tianxia.
yeah, 天下, so that is very, very important. If your people are not fed and not properly looked after, you will never have the mandate of heaven. But
Correct.
unfortunately, while we're looking at the potential of CPEC, for example, and the
Mhm.
BRI, um, what we always get in the Western media, legacy media, or even in conversations, is this whole propaganda. Well, I don't know if you want to call it propaganda, but this death debt trap diplomacy. You know,
That
and
yes.
and when they look at Pakistan, they say, "Oh, that's another Sri Lanka." Okay, what happened to Rajapaksa in the Sri Lanka port? What's happening in Panama? So whenever you talk about ports, first thing that comes into people's minds, debt trap. How, as far as your institute's concerned, how do you overcome, how do you explain that phenomena? One, is it true,
Hmm.
or is it propaganda? And how does it work? How do you overcome that kind of narrative if it's not true?
Yeah, great question. Look, I want to cite two articles which are very interesting and which I know you will read after this because they actually explain everything, right? One is of the Atlantic, the journal that is published in the US, The Myth of the Chinese Debt Trap. That's what it's called. And it explains with
Mm-hmm.
examples how that the debt trap narrative is completely false. And second is a fantastic research. It was a long research article by John Hopkins students who actually visited different countries in Africa where China has invested.
Mm-hmm.
And it was published in the Washington Post. It's called How US Policymakers, no, it's called US Policymakers Get China in Africa All Wrong.
Mm,
As you know, Africa is a critical part of the BRI, right? And these are Western sources that I'm quoting. And I think it's like good debt and bad debt, right? Like, I mean, the world is run on debt. So if you
yeah.
get debt from X, it's good to go. But if you get debt from Y, that is very bad. You bad boy, you're in trouble. So that's not fair. I mean, this whole world is run on debt financing. It's not,
Mm,
I mean, our credit cards is essentially basically debt, right? So the world international financial architecture is debt driven. So do Chinese projects have financing from China in addition to equity investments? Of course.
mm,
But does that mean that's bad? No.
mm,
I think what is important to analyze and compare is how competitive is the financing that is coming in for those projects compared to elsewhere. That is the question we need to be asking. And if I can do some self projection with your permission, uh, I co authored a paper on this when CPEC was, in 2016, highest number of projects were being built. So this narrative was also being spurned, churned day in, day out
yeah.
of the Chinese debt. So I said, let's write on this.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I was very lucky that your Singapore National University of Singapore also
US.
reached out and they wanted to republish it in a journal. So I shortened it for them. So it's called Where is the Money Going? And me and Fodadat Chatta, my colleague who authored it with me, we examined debt from Bretton Woods institutions and we examined financing from China. So, so I think that well, what has it done? Look, what is the Belt and Road Initiative offer? It is basically offering countries, primarily in the global south, access, no strings attached, access to finance and investment as an in addition to the traditional Asian Development Bank, World Bank, IMF. And I don't think IMF and the World Bank and the ADB have done anything wrong. They're not, it's not them versus Chinese financing. Why can't everyone work together?
Mm.
I think there has been a lot of good that Bretton Woods institutions have also done.
Yeah.
One of the major partners of the World Bank in South Asia is Pakistan. But that option to get specific investment in sectors which need to be tapped and need to be unlocked by global South countries without too much bureaucracy is a huge opportunity for all BRI countries, right?
Mm.
And whether it's Indonesia and Malaysia, I think the largest Chinese investor is now China. The largest foreign investor is China. So I think that it's very important to see that. And I think there's another presupposition when we talk about Chinese debt trap, and that it's being done by keeping a gun to a head on the host country.
Mm.
These are consensual projects that are agreed upon, negotiated, and a lot of times, let me be very honest, solicited by the global South countries. They go to Beijing, and I've been in the room in those conversations where these projects are solicited. They said, please, we would like you to invest in XYZ projects.
Mm.
So, when we talk about Chinese debt, we make China out to be this
Boogeyman.
imperial country which is forcing these countries. That's the whole narrative. It's this forcing these countries to concede to very harsh terms. It's not the case at all. That's not the case at all. And I mean, for example, FOCAC, which who is the institutional mechanism that China has made with African countries,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Every year, FOCAC is held in Beijing,
Mm-hmm.
and all the major countries in Africa are represented there. And China offers aid and investment and projects to those countries.
Mm.
And that's one of the highlights of the leaders of these countries is FOCAC, because it's a bonanza. It's like power sector, highways. And these are countries which need these projects.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to have whatever opinion that we conclude on that we arrive upon. I think it has to be evidence based.
Yeah. So you've talked at great length about Pakistan's relationship with China. Now, recently, after Operation Sindoor, there has been a surprising turn of events. Then, Asim Munir is having breakfast with Donald Trump.
Lunch.
Lunch, okay, lunch with Donald Trump. And then not long after that, US announced that they've signed a deal with Pakistan to develop your LNG resources. And as you mentioned, Pakistan having one of the lowest per capita consumption of electricity will definitely need this energy. So how does
Hmm.
Pakistan plan to balance its energy needs in relation to its relationship with China, knowing that I know the whole world is having to grapple with these two parents that are not getting along too well, but your relationship with China is really very deep from what I understand. So how do you actually balance these two?
Pakistan has actually always played a role of a bridge, if you look at Pakistan's history.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, Henry Kissinger flew from Pakistan to United States on a secret visit that Pakistan arranged for the US to recognize the People's Republic of China.
Mm-hmm.
So it was because of Pakistan's back channel with Washington and Beijing that the US actually recognized the People's Republic of China. He flew from Pakistan. Um, so Pakistan has always brought countries together, and even in this in the U.S. Engagement with Iran recently,
Yeah.
after the Israel-Iran conflict, Pakistan back-channeled with Tehran and brought Iran to the negotiating table, and with Washington, and that engagement is taking place. So I think that the United States is an important country all for the international community, including People's Republic of China, right?
Yeah.
And if US or any country for that matter wants to invest in Pakistan, I think that's very good.
Mm.
And Pakistan welcomes investment from all and sundry,
Yep.
because any country that is willing to economically engage with Pakistan, which positively impacts Pakistan's FDI,
Mm-hmm.
which Pakistan's Human Development Index, and improves Pakistan's economic standing, I think Pakistan should engage with them. And yes, China has been investing, was the largest foreign investor in Pakistan. Uh,
Mm.
and I think now the United States, as you rightly said, has announced its interest to do so. I think that both our engagements are equally good, and they are not at the cost of the other.
Mm.
So, and I think we need to learn from the ASEAN countries, which has investment from the West and the East. So we have a lot to learn from you.
I think
And
our principle was I was speaking to someone and they were saying, um, United States is our biggest FDI investor, and our biggest trading partner is now China. So, but never both. Like never have the biggest in FDI and biggest a trading partner at the same time. But I think it's slowly looking like, you know, China is going to be the biggest FDI and also the biggest trading partner. I don't think we can run away from that too much.
yeah,
That kind of strategy that we've adopted in the last 40 years, at least not in the last 20 years, I don't think that's going to work. And we also have to start recalibrating our foreign policy, and our security and our trade and our economic policy accordingly. So
right.
we kind of understand where you're coming from. It's just I want a perspective from you. How you're going to balance it.
Hmm.
We can learn from each other, definitely. How now, just going to a little bit further to your west. Recently, the US actually signed a peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And as you share a very long border with Iran. And it seems to me, according to some of the analysts, that is US moving closer to the northern borders of Iran and threatening the security of Iran. How does that impact what's going on in that region vis-a-vis Pakistan's security?
Yeah. Firstly, about the balancing part, I think that Pakistan has a very unequivocal relationship
Mm-hmm.
and position vis-a-vis Beijing. It's very, very clear, whether it's strategic, whether the defense aspect, whether the economic aspect. And I think at the core of it is Pakistan's,
Would you say it's ironclad?
I would definitely say it's ironclad. And
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely all weather, as cliche as it may seem. It
Mm-hmm.
has survived many ups and downs and different changes in the regional and global scenario. The relationship of China and Pakistan have remained steadfast
Mm-hmm.
and consistent. So, what we have seen, what the variable in the equation that has changed is Trump, right? There was no Trump before, now there is. And Trump is someone who does not toe the line of the US establishment, as we have seen.
Mm-hmm.
So the initiative and the overture towards Islamabad is driven by his person. It's not institutional. So I don't see it as a very long term engagement with Pakistan, because traditionally the US sees India as the preferred partner in South Asia. One of the reasons is to contain China, of course. And but however, President Trump sees the world in a way of his own liking,
Mm-hmm.
which many times does not converge with the traditional US establishment worldview,
Mm-hmm.
which is to our benefit at the moment. So that is number one. I think that's one has to be very mindful of that.
So
Uh,
what you're saying is that Pakistan views the US at the moment, because of Trump, as a transient, it's a phase, it's a transient phase, and at at the heart of it, it's still China. And
Hmm.
while this transient phase gives you benefits, you might as well grab it. Why not? I mean,
Sure.
I wouldn't say no. I
Yes,
wouldn't say no.
exactly.
Right.
And we also feel that he did play a positive role in the rapprochement between India and Pakistan. He did play a
Tell us
role.
more. Tell us more because we're not privy to all this information. Tell us whatever
Well,
you can.
well, as you know, I mean, as you know, he likes to end conflicts, right? Whether it's the Cambodia-Thailand conflict, whether it is Azerbaijan, Armenia,
Armenia.
and India-Pakistan. So there was a lot of back channeling from President Trump and the Marco Rubio, the foreign secretary, and the CENTCOM general, General Kurilla, who works very closely with the U.S. with Pakistan military, and that intervention was successful. And even though the country which we had the conflict with, India, does not, for whatever reason, concede President Trump's intervention, it is a public fact,
Mm.
and which Pakistan and the U.S. administration has publicly announced and praised. So I think that that engagement with Pakistan, and then Pakistan also assisting very productively in counterterrorism efforts and actually arresting and handing over a very high value target from Al Qaeda to President Trump right as he became president. And then the cryptocurrency um, opportunity that Pakistan has
Right.
developed, I think, is very, very interesting for the Trump administration, right? The digital assets reserve that we are planning on building. And I think in South Asia, Pakistan is excelling the fastest in crypto. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity between Washington and Islamabad to actually capitalize upon.
Yeah, we will leave. I think I'm going to delve into the digital currency next in our future podcast.
Okay.
So that one will be something that will delve into. But coming
Okay.
back to what we were talking about, Azerbaijan and Armenia, what's the story there? Do you think? You are much closer.
Azerbaijan, it's very interesting. So, Pakistan and Azerbaijan, as you may know, Fui, have a very close relationship, strategic relationship. And Pakistan actually supports Azerbaijan on its claim on Nagorno-Karabakh.
Mm-hmm.
And Azerbaijan has a very clear stated policy on Kashmir, Pakistan's position on Kashmir. And in fact, when this conflict with India just happened, Azerbaijan, China, and Turkey were the three countries which took a very clear position vis-a-vis Pakistan, India, and siding with Pakistan. So Pakistan has a very positive
Mm.
relationship, state to state, with Azerbaijan. But as far as the Nagorno-Karabakh issue is, it's a very long standing dispute between both countries.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of the key problems, conflicts in Central Asia. It's one of the, it stands out like a sore thumb. And for whatever reason, there has not been any progress or in cooling the temperature on the core issue of Nagorno-Karabakh prior to what we've just seen. And here we see, because the White House does bring weight and the White House does bring leverage, and the White House does have the clout, whether it's in Central Asia or ASEAN or South Asia or any other place, to bring two warring parties to the table if they want to, if there is that political will, and to sign on the dotted line. And President Trump does have that will, interest to, basically, he's a businessman.
Mm.
It's, war is bad for business unless you're selling arms. So I think that it is a very welcome intervention, right? That we've seen, because otherwise, what we see is conflicts,
Mm.
unending conflicts that continue to thrive, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's countries that are fanning the fire as well. and uh, they just get worse. So I think this it's welcome, and it's interesting to see the U.S. media, Fui,
Mm,
New York Times and all of these, this, as you said, the legacy media, him meeting Putin, I think is a great initiative, right?
mm, mm, mm.
Russia is seen as a adversary by the US.
Yeah.
So communication and dialogue is generally good, I would say. But the fact that they met has aroused so much criticism.
It's
And
which
criticism that why did he even meet Putin? So we see there are a lot of hawks who
yeah.
believe in hard power, or isolate those countries, or go to war with them and teach them a lesson,
Mm,
and democratic values of human rights need to be
mm,
instilled in those, that mindset of those newcons. We need to get out of it, but we can still see that it's still that mindset is still there. Why even talk to them? Why did you even meet President Putin? So that doesn't make sense in today's day and age, where we
mm.
need to work together on so many fronts.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Cambodia-Thailand conflict that we had, a few weeks ago here, also took us by surprise. I think it blindsided us. We never thought that was something that could happen in ASEAN, because we've been trading with each other and with China, with US for decades. And
Yeah,
no, I mean, we of course these conflicts are not new. I mean, it's decades old, but it's always simmering. Yes, fine, but I wouldn't expect weapons to be used at that scale. Now,
exactly.
yeah, your institute recently published an article called "16 Hours That Reshaped South Asia." How how uh how has it shaped South Asia? I know you touched a little bit about that, but give us a gist of what this article is about.
Yeah. We believe that the regional power dynamics in South Asia have been reset after this conflict. Because
Okay.
prior to this conflict, if you allow me to give some context of what has happened in South Asia prior to this conflict, there's a new government in Maldives that has asked for the Indian troops that were stationed in Maldives to leave. And when the president of Maldives was campaigning, he had the India out t-shirt. And now he's the president. So they won. And one of their main slogans was India out, right? So now they're in power in Maldives. The long-standing partner of India, Sheikh Hasina, was all of a sudden ousted. Student protests,
Mm,
which no one could have imagined would have evolved into a snowball effect that led to an ouster of a fascist regime that had no opposition. Either the opposition was in jail
mm,
or dead
mm-hmm.
or in exile, become a one party state. She had to flee the country.
Yeah.
There is a government which is now very positive towards Pakistan and is only asking India to give Sheikh Hasina back to the people of Bangladesh for accountability.
Mm,
So that's what's happening in Bangladesh. Pakistan, you already know the scenario and the circumstances.
yeah.
And in with Nepal and Sri Lanka also, the relationship has has seen a lot of tension because of India, uh, you know, as they say, mansplaining, right?
Mm, mm,
Mansplaining. Uh, and what has happened is now that finds itself a babe in the woods.
yeah. It's surrounded.
And that was never the case.
Yeah.
This was India considered. And then what happened with this conflict was, with the culmination, the climax of the film was the war with Pakistan. Everyone, frankly speaking, thought, oh, India with its big military, with its, the size, the partnership of the US. And here, Pakistan, which is a strong country with a strong military, even the President Trump has said it more than a few times now about those jets
Mm,
that was
mm,
down, and we all know whose jets they were. And even though India didn't admit to it, actually, after a month, the Indian army chief admitted in an interview at the Shangri-La dialogue that Pakistan did shoot down its jets. But the French company, Rafael, admitted to it anonymously that yes, and the cherry on the cake, or shall I say the last nail on the coffin, was that the US almost was partial towards Islamabad in this conflict, frankly speaking. Right after the war, President Trump hosted the chief, not only the civilian leader, but the military leader in the White House, which is almost, like a pat on the back, and said he was, after the lunch, said he's very impressive. I really like him.
mm,
So,
mm.
and then what spiraled even further downward for India, and I'm so sorry I'm deriving so much pleasure out of this, but I can't hide it, is that is that Trump slapped the worst tariffs ever on India. So it all adds up. It's not one event or instance. It's all these are dots which keep on getting connected and becomes a story. It becomes a narrative. And then it becomes a regional reset, a regional situation. So India has suffered a setback, and Pakistan has to be very, it's in the interest of Pakistan to have a good relationship with India. The
I
people
think.
of Pakistan do not want war. We cannot afford more war. But of course, this was self-defense, and I have seen India's biggest advantage was its progressive secular identity. You
Mm,
know, India originally. But when a clique, which is the rightest of the right wing,
mm,
comes into power and uh, believes and hangs a map in the parliament of Akhand Bharat,
mm,
which is Greater India, which envelopes Nepal, parts of Pakistan, and other parts of South Asia, Bhutan, as part of India, that is not normal. And that is not something reasonable in a 21st century where we are talking about cooperation, we are talking about SEO, we are talking about commerce. And here's this map, which is hung in the Indian parliament that
mm,
sees officially the concept of India as having territories which are actually other sovereign states. So, what
mm,
message are you sending apart from the grave human rights violations that are happening in Kashmir that have been recorded and documented by Amnesty, by Human Rights Watch, by international organizations,
yeah.
how rights have
Okay.
been trampled? So, I think it's a reminder and it's a wake up call for India to get its act in order.
Yeah, but India is also argues that it's been under terrorist attacks, for so many decades, and a lot of them actually originate from Pakistan. I mean, rightly or wrongly. Um, how they too need to balance. They say they need to balance their own security needs as well. How are we going to in the 21st century? How would China, for example, if if Modi manages to get closer to China? Will China be able to mediate,
Firstly, about the terrorist attacks, because I want to take this question head on, right?
please?
Pahalgam,
Mm,
Pakistan said, share the evidence with us. You don't want to share the evidence with us, share it with the international community, with international peace brokers, with other countries which you trust, who can share the evidence with us. We said we are even ready for a joint inquiry commission. It's like, Fui, I'm in Kuala Lumpur. You and I have a problem. and I sue you, and there's a robbery in my house. Right? And you don't know much about the robbery, and it's vague how it happened, all of it happened.
Mm.
And I said, this is fui.
Mm.
And I sue you, and I take extra legal issue measures, extrajudicial measures, and I say send thugs to your house.
Mm.
And I say, I have to teach Fui a lesson because this is the third robbery in my house, and it's Fui. And I think you're gonna say, first thing you will say is, Mustafa, can you show me the CCTV
Mm.
footage? Who came? Like, how does this lead to me? I'm so sorry there's a robbery in your house, but why are you suing me? And if that is the case, can you at least, can I jointly look at the evidence or investigate with you
Mm.
so I can help? But how can you sue me or how can you send thugs to my house? On what basis?
Mm.
So it's wrong. It's unfortunate that you had a robbery in your house, but why are you going for me? So I think the fact that no evidence was not forget Pakistan shared with the international community raises question marks for any reasonable international player.
Yeah, I can understand for Pakistan, but what about the others? That's what
I'll tell you about the others.
yeah.
We arrested a serving naval officer of the Indian Army, serving current officer from Balochistan.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave a confession on a video that this is my rank. I'm in this battalion in the Navy. This is my full name. This is my mother. This is my father. And I'm a serving officer in the Indian Naval Army, in the Indian Naval Air Force, in the Indian Navy, sorry, in the Indian Naval Force. And I'm in Balochistan to sabotage CPEC. This is what is called evidence. Why don't we talk about evidence? If we
Mm.
want to talk about evidence, a person, a country caught with its pants down,
Mm.
with its hands in the cookie jar, as they say. Well, that is evidence. That's incriminating evidence. Why is that not being talked about? And he said, I'm in Balochistan, which has an insurgency to sabotage
Mm.
the CPEC projects and here to help the insurgents. That is what is terrorism. Terrorism is, one second,
Mm.
terrorism is supporting one faction in Sri Lanka over the other. The, the fight between the Tamil Tigers and the Sri Lankan government. We know. And history knows where the money and the arms were coming from. So I think we need to be very clear when we talk about terrorism. As far as what's happening in Kashmir is concerned, there's a independent, organic freedom movement,
Mm.
fight for self-determination that is happening in Kashmir. Pakistan morally supports it.
Mm.
Pakistan morally sides with them, with the Kashmiris, for their right of self-determination, and Pakistan will continue to support them for their right of self-determination. But there is no terrorism or Pakistan's any defense, weapons, or any other support. But yes, morally we stand with the brothers and sisters in Kashmir, from
Mm.
with the women that are being raped, from the kids that are being blinded by the pellets that are being shot at them. This is recorded by international human rights organizations. Um, and we support that. So if those freedom fighters inflict damage
Mm.
onto Indian security forces that are ravaging them day in and day out, India needs to mend fences and get its act together in Kashmir.
Do you think China will be a mediator, a good mediator?
We are very proud of the fact that China recognizes Pakistan's position in Kashmir,
Mm-hmm.
and China has asked India to come to the table and discuss. But the problem is that India is so defensive that they say this is a bilateral issue. If there's a UN resolution on an issue, how can that be a bilateral issue? It's international dispute.
So do you think this upcoming visit by Modi to Beijing at the SCO, first one in 7 years. This is going to be raised.
This is just bait to negotiate with Trump. The audience of the visit to in China is the president of the United States, no one else.
Mm,
It's tactical. It's not strategic.
I see.
This
You
is just a negotiating tactic with Washington, nothing more.
so he's using China to
Of
negotiate.
course, and it's smart. I think that he's doing the right thing. But yeah,
Nothing to do with China.
yeah, it's nothing to do with China. This is all to do with the U.S.
What do you think he's hoping
It's
to
very predictable.
is
Right after the
just
starting, he tweeted about Putin. I had a very good call with my brother, Mr. Putin. Now he's going to Beijing. Why is India, the closest non-NATO ally? Why is India part of the Quad?
mm,
Why is India part of the Five Eyes? What eyes? Eyes on whom?
mm.
Eyes on whom? Who have these eyes have to be for? I think we need to answer these questions. If India wants to work with China, why is it part of the Quad? We know what is the purpose of the Quad.
Yeah.
We all know what is the purpose of the Quad, right?
So what you're saying is that from your viewpoint, you see that as it's not a long-term strategy to build a long-term relationship with China, but rather it's a tactical move to get US back on the saddle.
Get US to back off a little bit, yes.
Mm.
And to demonstrate that I have other options. So don't push me to the corner because I have Beijing, I have Moscow, and they're available.
How important is Russia to India? Is that also tactical, you think?
I think the Russia-India relationship is historic and it's a very close strategic relationship. And that's why we can see India's position on Ukraine-Russia has been very measured. India did not go with the US position, even in the United Nations, in the voting vis-a-vis the Ukraine-Russia war. They have been very, very neutral, pro-Russia. So, and India continues to buy Russian oil. So India does have a very close historical relationship with Russia. And I think that is there.
It's funny when we were growing up. Well, I was growing up. Things were a lot clearer. Russia with India, China with Pakistan. Now you have a situation where you have Russia and China. I think this combination is throwing a lot of uh, international relations experts off. They just don't. First of all, they don't understand China enough. I mean, I think they do. I mean, the West understand Russia, of course, because it's historical, because of the Cold War, and of course, Europe understands Russia very, very well. I mean, they've got centuries of interaction with each other. But I
Yes.
think this Russia-China phenomena, everyone's trying to grapple at this. How is Pakistan taking all this in?
The Russia-China phenomena is,
First of all, do you think it will last?
I think Russia has had a very old association with China. We've seen that there has also been competition. We have seen that there's also been confrontation. And then we've seen there's also been cooperation. And the role model that used to be for China as a communist state was the Soviet Union. And then what not to do when the Soviet Union broke up was the model for China of what not to do, not to open up so fast.
As well, yes, for sure, for sure.
So, but we have seen that Putin has emerged as an icon of resistance to the West. And there's this natural synergy that has been very finely curated by Washington, actually, that has brought Beijing and Moscow together. This closeness has been primarily, uh, you know, evolved under the Obama administration and then glued together, put together by the Biden administration in their adversarial policies towards both and putting them under the same block. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Mhm.
But I see that this cooperation, strategic cooperation, to be long lasting because they have shared interests in moving forward, which are at odds with that of NATO, which is at the odds of that of key Western countries. So I think that cooperation is in the interest of both countries, and they working together and coordinating, enhanced coordination is something that serves both of their interests.
Mhm. So coming back to Pakistan, because we are trying to learn this from countries that have had more interactions with Russia. For us, Russia is very new. It's not something that we're used to. In the 90s, there were some attempts to pivot towards Asia. When
Mhm.
Putin was, I don't know whether he was the president or the prime minister at that time. It was one or the other. Anyway, there were attempts, and of course, then Russia went into a state where they had to rebuild their own economy. So that was the lesson then for them. So coming back second round, I can sense that there is some sort of apprehension in Asia as to what is this Russia all about. So from Pakistan's experience, what has been the lessons learned in terms of dealing with Russia?
Frankly speaking, Pakistan has not worked very closely with Russia.
Mm.
In fact, we fought them in Afghanistan through the
Yeah,
Afghan.
because they occupied Afghanistan. So
We
in those,
occupied Afghanistan,
yeah,
and Pakistan worked with the United States and trained the Afghan Mujahideen to, and we
correct.
support the Afghan majority. And actually, and a lot of Pakistanis fought in Afghanistan to repulse the Soviet occupation. We succeeded.
Mm.
So
So
the Cold War was a very close US-Pakistan nexus against Russia.
Russia. So how do you now then reconcile? We've not had those. Of course, we didn't. We've not had those kind of adversarial relationship with Russia. But how do you reconcile those emotions? I mean, it's not that long ago. It's only been what 20, 30 years ago.
But you know, statecraft is based on interests, not emotions.
That's why we have this podcast.
Yes. So we had that at that time, and now Pakistan is engaging with Russia, and there's positive engagement with Russia. There's strategic engagement with Russia, and but our defense partnership and economic partnership primarily has been more so with China, but we have had good positive overtures recently with Russia over the past year and a half, and some high level engagements where our prime minister has met with the President Putin, and there have been some ministerial delegations from Russia here. But Pakistan has traditionally not been very closely engaged with Russia. But now I think that slowly that engagement is increasing.
So you're feeling that too, on the ground?
Yeah, I think that engagement is slowly increasing, and there was a there was this for some reason there was an icebreaker that was needed, and I think that ice has broken.
What was
And
that?
I
Explain.
said that it's there was this a requirement of an icebreaker.
Oh, okay, okay. What was the icebreaker? The requirement of the icebreaker. It
The
has to be
icebreaker was that there was the Cold War hangover
ah.
in both countries, and I think that hangover is slowly fading away.
I think Russia under Putin has transformed. It totally has. I know this West still continues to, especially European nations, continue to demonize him, uh, for whatever reasons, they have a very tenuous. I mean, Europe and Russia always had a very tenuous relationship. They're good friends, they're enemies, and then over the centuries. But I think Putin has transformed Russia in a very big way. I was there earlier this year, and I can see that why people would support him, given the way Russia was treated by the West after the fall of the Soviet Union. And I think a lot of countries and a lot of diplomats, or this is very bad. I feel it's bad statecraft to have underestimated Russia's uh, insecurities in having lost its territories. I mean,
Mhm.
Britain, for example, after 100 years of losing all their Commonwealth countries, is still having, hangover and pangs of, losing limbs and legs and, what more, a country that's, lost its territories only about 30 years ago. So, but it's certainly a very, very different country. And I can feel the vibrancy when I was there. And it feels like a very young country. It feels you go there and it's quite a European feel. I mean, it's definitely not Asia, and yet it's very young. It felt like
Mm.
I would say I would say it felt like Berlin in the early year 2000s. Felt
That's a
like
very interesting analogy.
that felt like Prague in the year 2000s. Young people everywhere and they're partying, they're all listening to Western songs. You get into a taxi, you get into the Uber, what they call Yandex Go is like a Uber, and they all have the radio on, and it's always Western music. I
Interesting.
I
Very
think
interesting.
I've been in a taxi like at least about a dozen times, right? That was my only means of transport. And I think almost every single time was Western song. Never, hardly a Russian song played on the radio.
That's interesting. But I want to add to that analysis is that in order to keep the legitimacy to rule
Mm.
from the people, to derive that for Putin, I think it's important to have economic delivery. You cannot just, stretch that nationalism or ultra nationalism.
I think he has done that. He
Yeah.
has done that. My next question is, where is the second layer of leadership? Um, the legacy. I mean, what I'm trying to say is it's continuity. You see, China is not about Xi Jinping. I know the West comes in and says, oh, someone needs to lob him off. He's an emperor. No, China is really not about Xi Jinping. I mean, although he has come in and then, he has he has a certain presence about him and things like this, but China is definitely not about Xi Jinping. And the CCP is as uh, as China's tradition has it, they have a very long worldview. It's like, okay, 4 years is nothing. They plan and think in centuries.
Correct.
I'm
That's
not sure, yeah, but I'm not sure about Russia. So it is still to me it's
I
interesting,
think you
but
talk
yet
about second tier when you think that the first tier is going somewhere. I don't see Putin going anywhere. I
no,
mean,
he's not going, but he's going to not live forever. That's what I'm trying to say. Where's the succession plan? Lavrov, of course, is a very brilliant statesman, but he's probably older than Putin, I'm sure. I think, or he looks older.
yeah, I think the Communist Party serves as a great model of smooth power transition for countries. It is exemplary how the power is shifted, transferred so smoothly in the party congress
Mm,
that takes place. So I think that's very, very interesting to see and understand. And that cadre that has been nurtured, seasoned, educated, and trained, and
mm,
then rising from the prefecture level, from the village, from the
yeah.
county level to the city level, to the provincial level, then to the center, to the central committee. So I think that is a fantastic merit-based system that they have.
That is not the CCP. That is a Chinese, very much a Chinese calibration. It's
But the
not.
Communist Party of China has that inculcated by
Where is it? Because
party school.
that's the psyche of the people. They even have come to a point where they actually realize that CCP is probably, I mean, looking at the laws of nature, it's not going to last for another 150 years. They're actually planning for China post CCP. Can you imagine? So you're almost planning for your own, death and then what's going to happen to your children, that kind of thing. That's a very typical Chinese thing. But it's interesting. It's interesting. Anyway, so we probably will need to wrap this up. And let's try and do this every now and then.
Yes, yes. No, this was such an excellent conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Good, good, good. If you have anything that you want to update us, if there's going to be some flashpoint somewhere, that's how we survive, right? Analysts like ourselves, if it's going to be peace and prosperity, we may not have any conversations left to talk about.
I think we should enjoy the lull before the storm.
Hi, welcome back to the third episode of our post-analysis with a Pakistan-China Institute. And the title of our show is called Pakistan's Neighbourly Survivalism. Is this a tactical romance or inner circle played by the US? Or it is just pure survival for Pakistan? So Pakistan's strategic behavior and foreign policy orientation is always in relation with its immediate neighbours, namely India, Afghanistan, Iran, and China. And out of the four, three of them are either rising powers or are already superpowers. And how it maneuvers diplomatically, militarily, economically to survive and maintain sovereignty in this very complex and also somewhat hostile environment is going to be very interesting when we explore some of the viewpoints from Mr. Mustafa Hyder Sayed from the Pakistan-China Institute. He did share candidly his views on Pakistan's diplomacy with its neighbours, especially one as large as India, with its own historical challenges, while balancing a formidable deterrence by aligning with China. Instead of attracting the wrath of the West following Operation Sindoor, we've also seen recently Pakistan's First Field Marshal, General Asim Munir, was invited for lunch in Washington, to have lunch with Mr. Trump in Washington. So the Western media has been asking whether this is tactical romance or is this the new inner circle played on the part of the US. So Mustafa's view on the latest twist in terms of events is part of what he thinks to be Pakistan's survival handbook, what I call a survival handbook. And its implications is that its mindset or strategy focused on existential security. It's often in response to perceived threats or challenges. This includes military posturing, alliances, and internal consolidation. So since 1947, Pakistan has viewed India as an existential threat due to the partition of Kashmir, and of course, there's been several wars since then between the two countries. So it's only it is therefore not surprising that Mustafa expressed somewhat his views on India in a negative light. But that is to us part of the challenge of having that historical historical animosity, if you like, between the two countries because of the way they parted. So its external threats is often used to justify its strong military presence in domestic policies too. And using proxies, state actors and non-state actors to maintain leverage in Afghanistan and Kashmir is among the strategies adopted by Pakistan in order to maintain its survivalist spirit. But at the same time, it also understands that its geostrategic location to gain international aid and loans is also very crucial for the survival of Pakistan's economy. So in conclusion, Pakistan's survivalism is a constant balancing act. It captures how Pakistan navigates this dangerous neighborhood through strategic alliances, military deterrence, diplomatic tightropes, internal securitization. It reflects not just state behavior, but national psyche, molded by insecurity, rivalry, and the relentless need to stay afloat in a region full of historical grievances and power asymmetries. So I hope you enjoyed our podcast with Mr. Mustafa, and we hope to have him back again when time permits and when there's something interesting happening in that part of the world, which always is. And until then, thank you very much for watching us. Thank you.